Dude, you said sandblaster. I didn't think you meant like enormous machine. I thought you meant like one of those little tiny toy ones that you get.
Well, I was looking at those and then I saw this one and figured big is better, right?
Do it once, do it right.
Yeah.
We're gonna put all the RX7 stuff in there. Look at that. And we're gonna blast it. I'm so keen. But we are sandblasting newbies. This is funny, this is what the part sees. Oh, no. Like when you're blasting something. Come on! We're about to chuck this arm in the blaster. This is the one I got all the bushings out of yesterday. A little bit of rust and crud and paint on it, so hopefully these will come up looking brand new. Then we've got to etch prime them and then paint them, then leave them to dry before we can put the bushes back in. Put my arms in, get my foot pedal ready. Come on. There it goes. Oh, look at it. That's so cool. It's just taking all that crud away. Yeah. That, so exciting. Having used wire wheels for that long, now be able to sandblast something is epic. So cool. All the rust gone, all the paint gone. I missed a little bit there. It's super smooth. So basically for the rest of the day, we're just going to be blasting, painting, blasting, priming and painting. This is the bracket that holds the stabilizer bar. A little bit sketchy, a little bit of old paint on there, a bit of rust. Perfect candidate to be blasted in that cabinet. So let's do it. We have been cranking it out. The diff is ready to be stripped. I think Paulie's gonna crank into that. I'm gonna keep blasting. We're gonna blast these little saddle mounts and all that sort of stuff. The sway bar is in there ready to go, the big front one. So yeah, it's a busy day. And we've also got these to do. We also have all the bushes and bearings and ball joints and stuff to fully rebuild our steering and to do these arms. So actually, it's gonna look really good, I think. Just got a message from Gavin saying that the parts are ready to pick up, so I'm going to run over to his shop and grab them.
It's a rainy autumn day, perfect for working on cars inside the shed, which is exactly what's been going on at Gavin's place, getting the mad new coilover and brake setup finished in record time.
How you going?
Dude, this looks so good. Show me, tell me everything.
Alrighty. So, here we have the front coilovers with our Willwood brake kit, 294mm FD RX7 rotor, 4-piston dust boot,
Epic.
calipers.
Dude, when you sent me a photo of this, it was exploded onto this bench, and now it's just like a unit. There's a lot of stuff in there.
Yeah, there is a lot that goes into it. All new wheel bearings, seals, brake lines, hubs, brackets.
And so the rear is different. How does that work?
So on the rear of the RX7, the shock tower is actually quite narrow. So if we have it that way, it doesn't actually fit in the tower. So what we did was, I came up with this design and we reversed it so it's upside down. And that way it just bolts in, you got your bushes on the top, and you can adjust the dampener down the bottom.
Oh, cool.
Through that screw.
Oh, right, that's awesome.
Yeah, so you just turn the dial.
And that just bolts straight in onto the diff, onto everything else?
Yep.
And no more of the big springs that used to be in there anymore?
No more big springs, and yeah, it makes it all just one unit. So it's normally separate shock and spring, but this consolidates it to be one.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So all the stuff is drying back at the shed, so going to wait till that's done, put all the new bushes in, and then put this stuff in, which I'm super excited about. Thanks so much, man. This is epic stuff, and yeah, I can't wait to press the brakes.
Before all the mad parts start going back in the car, I'm going to apply some rust converter to the chassis. This needs 24 hours to do its thing, so in the meantime, I'll prime and paint the front cross member that the engine sits on. The rest of the parts are dry and ready to be installed, so there's only a few things left on the checklist.
I'm absolutely pumped with how this is going. I've got a list of stuff that's still to do, but we've got plenty of time. But we're gonna go first thing, all hands on deck, and get this thing back together so I can get it wheel aligned and take it for a drive.
Martin, you have done a freaking awesome job with this. I wasn't sure if I condoned taking up most of our spare space with that thing, but this here does look amazing.
How good is it though?
It looks
I started
amazing.
with a wire brush and Paulie's like, we need a sandblaster, so we got one. And I'm really glad we did, because it turned it from like a week of scrubbing away with wire brush and all the dangers that come with that to just refinishing it, which is what you're doing. Like, it's not perfect, but it's not rusty.
Yeah.
Like, it's actually going to survive a lot longer, so it's a good way of restoring these metal parts.
It looks great. And now all of this is going to go back on. So we're changing all of the bushings to white line bushings. These are a two-piece, so while the old ones had to be kind of burnt out and melted out of place, these ones here, literally a bit of grease on there, and then they are going to go in from either side. That is a relatively inexpensive way of totally transforming the connectedness of all of the different components of your car, because over 30, 40 years, rubber deteriorates, it gets hard, it cracks, it's probably been through rain, snow, ice, who knows, and that is just a way of going, you know what, all of these parts here, you can make them like new again, but not the rubbers. So changing all of those is going to drastically transform the experience of driving this car.
So there's a few reasons you do this. Now, you can also do this on a new car, because new cars also come with rubber bushings almost always, and they have a certain amount of compliance, and they do that for NVH, noise, vibration, harshness. And you might want to sacrifice a bit of noise and sacrifice a bit of harshness so that you can have a sharper handling car, which is why you would change to a poly bushes. Not all poly bushes are the same as well. They have also a different amount of compliance in them depending on what they're made from, so you can check that out. And in our case, it's a kit for the entire car, which is awesome, because every single little weird random bush that's in everything, we're going to be able to replace with these, which are super easy to install. So we're going to slap them all in the car.
The same kind of thing applies, of course, to engine mounts as well. So there is some performance gain. It is actually a thing that people do, because there's all sorts of side-by-side comparisons of what factory engine mounts look like when you boot it, and your engine's kind of making some movement before that power is kind of transferring down. So some people can replace those. It can lead to an increase in harshness and vibration, so you've got to weigh up whether it's worth it. In terms of this, though, what we're doing, this is going to be a transformation that is totally worth it, because the car is old, it is shit. It was shit.
And in this case...
now it's not.
In this case, the rubber ones were actually bonded in as well. So to replace that is a little bit more tricky with rubber ones. I mean, 30 years ago, you would just buy that whole thing and just slap it in and away you go. But luckily, the aftermarket has us covered here, and we can put some new bushes in, which should make it drive pretty nice.
Martin, let's Lego it in.
We're starting with the cross member so the engine can be reattached to the chassis where it belongs. Then we're going to prepare all the bushes and grease them up where required. With these new bushes, the purpose of the grease is to help prevent corrosion on the steel parts, as well as allow some movement. It doesn't need heaps, but you should occasionally reapply it if you enjoy water crossings like we do on the world's best four-wheel driving and RX7 channel. We're going to install all the bushes into the arms on the bench so we can refit them into the car in the right order. These two-piece bushes are quick and simple to install, as most bushes like this don't require any special tools to put them in. We're going to replace our ball joints at the same time, and in this case, a press bushing toolkit makes this job really easy. If you don't have access to a press, you can also use the assortment of sleeves along with the threaded rods to pull the bushes into place. The front sway bar that we're reusing goes through the front radius rod mounts and can be bolted back into the car. Then we can install the control arms and caster rods, which we can reset back to the original settings using the measurements that Paulie took in the last episode.
is just about ready to install our mad custom coilovers. We've got 1 or 2 more bushes to put in, but while there's the 3 of us here, we're also going to smash in the rear end. So this has all been rebushed, all the arms are here. We've just bolted it together loosely. We're going to install it back into the car, hang it off the old shocks, which will go, so we can stabilise it, connect the tail shaft again, and start to bolt everything in.
It all looks so nice, all nice and new,
Yeah.
bushy.
Now
tight.
you would, yes, you would
Excellent.
absolutely powder coat everything. If you had lots and lots of time to pull everything apart, you take it all back, strip it, powder coat it, that will last forever. This is going to make it look nice and also prevents any further surface rust.
Being a live axle car, meaning the back wheels are tied together and move up and down together, there's little to no adjustments in the rear end. All the handling changes are dialed in at the front during an alignment. But new bushes means it can move freely and won't clunk or wobble around while driving. The fresh new bushes require a little bit of extra encouragement to seat into place, but once there, the factory bolts go straight back in and can be tightened up. While we're finishing off the rear end, Paulie's going to reconnect all the front steering gear. It's more often found in trucks these days, but Mazda used them back in the day. It has a collection of linkages and tie rods that you adjust in an alignment to get the car handling the way you need it. They're often a little bit vague around the centre and often feel sloppy. We've replaced every possible part of the system to make it as good as it can get, which is arguably still not as good as a rack.
Car is coming down. That means it's time for the coilovers to go in. It's very, very exciting.
Now there are a couple of options, and by a couple I mean 2 in this case, of where your actual brake caliper goes in relation to your disc and your coilover, front and back. Now some people say the general rule is front is for passenger cars, rears are for sports cars. We're going to set this up the same way it was before, which is the caliper on the trailing side. There are some considerations with ultra light racing cars, things like that, about where you want your weight distribution, and that's where your caliper should go. We're sticking with how it was before. It's on the trailing side. We're going to stick it in, Martin.
That's right. And if you wanted to go the other way, you just use the other shock. It's that simple. But also we have the brake line to worry about as well, which we need to make happen. So we're going to
Looks fancy, man.
get rid of the brake caliper and then put it in because there's a brake caliper in the way.
Great.
I'll undo that first. That's right.
In order to keep as much air out of the braking system as possible, we have to work quickly. By disconnecting the original brake caliper, then quickly swapping in our new coilover and caliper, we can minimise fluid loss and mess. The top nuts for the rear coilovers are hidden behind some plastic boot trims. With them moved out of the way, we can unbolt the manky old shocks and install our mad new adjustable coilovers.
Okay, it's time for a test fit, people.
They look so good.
They look so good. So we've got a lot of messing around to do with our height still. That's fine. We want to get the wheel on there so we can sort of start to take measurements and dial it in. That's the idea. The wheel's really light. Yes. I'm so happy with that. Look at it. I mean, even that gap looks okay. Like, I reckon you shave, what, 15 mil off that? Sit it right there.
Yeah.
Beautiful. So good. Sitting on something. So we're probably going to have to pull that out and swap the sides, and the caliper will go on the front because it looks like there's a bolt on the back of the caliper that actually hits the ball joint. So we're going to swap them. So before I went to the dyno, I had mad issues with cold starting, and I foured the plugs reasonably badly. So I've actually got myself a new set of NGK plugs. The code on these is BUR7EQ and then BUR9EQ. Now the idea is that you have a different plug on the leading and the trailing spark plug. This is insurance just to have a nice clean set that I can put in if I have any more dramas. It should be fine. Lots of cold starts moving around. It can get rich and foul the plugs, but this will sort it out with some nice fresh ones before we go for a drive. Ready for a wheel test fit. The only thing I forgot is some wheel nuts. I'm going to go steal some off my Daihatsu Mira or the Yaris, because yes, they are the same. Toyota 12 by 1.5 on this particular one. So I need nuts for the front now. I'm going to straighten up the steering, test fit our wheel, adjust the height, spanner check everything, wheel alignment, drive. The new shocks are on, the new brakes are on, all our new suspension is on, all the rusty crap underneath the car is gone. I'm putting some temporary wheel nuts on that I found in the bottom of a box because I actually need a set of 8 to put on the front, but these will do for now. They are 1.5 by 12. That looks so good. Please excuse the average wheel nuts, that will be replaced shortly. We matched the suspension side to side to get the heights the same, but as you can see, the front is sitting up nice and high. Luckily, we have fully adjustable coilovers, so we can adjust that. We can bring the gap down so it sits right about there, I reckon. So I've got a little bit of clearance. I can still get over speed humps, still get into shopping centres and not scrape my nice car.
We're going to flush the whole braking system out with some Castrol DOT4 fluid, which is a 2-person job. The front calipers have 2 bleed points, so we'll do both to make sure all the air is out of the system. The wheels can then go back on for the last time. Now I can reconnect the battery and I can install the final handling mod, which is this mad front strut brace. Then, via the wheel alignment shop, it's time for a drive.
First drive in the RX7, finished. Suspension, brakes, engine, tune, everything done. I think I should start by saying there's no getting away from the fact that this is an old car. And when you look at photos of old cars and videos of old cars on the internet or TV, whatever it is, you look at it and you go, wow, that thing's just so amazing. It must be so awesome to drive. It must feel exactly like my 2018 Toyota Camry. It does not. It's loud, it's a little bit smelly, it's a little bit like creaky, and some stuff, you know, doesn't work as well as it should. The aircon doesn't work because someone just took it out. The radio barely works. Like, it's not the same as having a brand new car, but what you do get from this is just an experience. There's something, particularly now it's modified, it makes a little bit extra power over stock. It handles really well now. It's got those coilovers. It's got the big brakes on it, so it actually pulls up and stops now. It just generally feels really, really good. And it's an experience driving. It's like the rotary ownership experience is not just about when you put your foot down. It's like, it's the whole thing, and I sort of understand that better now than I ever did. A little bit more temperamental. We've fixed a lot of the sort of rotary problems with a new ECU and a good tune in it. So a lot of that stuff is actually better than it would have otherwise been when this thing was box stock, and like the fact that it was just unreliable took a lot of the fun out of it. You do have to rev it to make it go, absolutely. You got to give it some revs. It's just the way it is, but it is really nice to drive now. It's actually really cool, and I'm really feeling it. A car like this turns everything you know on its head. This weird Wankel-powered rotary thing that Mazda made in the 70s and 80s has really been a learning experience for me to have to understand how rotaries works, how the things are tuned, all the little quirks about owning them, but I'm so happy with how this thing has turned out.
You've done a great job, Marty, and those wheels, just pure bellissimo.
Yep.
They actually look great. The height looks good.
Yep.
It looks nice and chunky. You've done a great job, man. Like, you really took this project in your stride and just smashed it out. And it is better than this car would have ever been with its original technology. I'm sorry to the purity police out there. That is better than how that car ever left the factory.
It drives reliably now. You get in it, you start it, you drive it wherever you want. It's got new coilovers, it handles well, it stops well with those massive brakes. Yes, they're too big for what the car actually needs, but they're upgraded, they're brand new. Everything through it now in the driveline is basically being new or checked or once overed, so that this car is actually now a joy to drive. It's noisy, it's smelly, it's got the rotary things going on, but overall, I really like it.
Let's go, Martin. Let's get in there. Let's go do some, what do you do with rotaries?
Man, rotary's the future, didn't you know?
Do you do skids?
You probably could, but rotaries,
we
rotaries
better not
are
do
the
them
future.
here, though.
Dude, the future is rotary. Did you know that?
It's electric rotary, Martin.
No, just rotary.
No, it's
petrol,
electric.
stinky petrol.